Hi, everyone. In this video session, I'm going to show you how to create this dashboard in Tableau. We are going to use the Superstore datasets, and we're going to first create 3 elements that we will put together on this dashboard. The first element is sales by state. You can see that the dollar sales for each state is displayed on it. You have also color-coded the states. So states with profits are shown with bluish colors, and orange represents losses. The second element, we are seeing the sales by manufacturers in a bar plot. You have also sorted the manufacturers based on their total sales from highest to lowest in each product category. In the third element, we are showing profits by subcategory, and we are also displaying those profits beside each bar. We also have a control element here that comes with the sales by state sheet, and it allows us to select data from certain states and display them. If I deselect all the states and select those states I'm interested in, I can learn about what's happening in those states and gain some insights. For example, New York is doing well, but what's happening in Texas? So this is the dashboard, and it's made up of these 3 elements that were separately created here and here and here. We will also create a story. Stories are like presentations in Tableau, and you can put together any elements you're interested in and create a story that conveys a certain message. So in this case, I have started with showing the entire country and the sales in different states. Then I zoomed in on California, and I'm talking about California here, moving on to New York then, followed by Texas, and eventually I'm going to discuss how different manufacturers are performing. But we'll focus on creating this dashboard first. So let's get started. First, we will start with an overview of the Tableau workspace. I open Tableau, and the first screen that comes up is going to be the screen where we can connect to our data source. You can see that we can connect to different file types, different data types, or different types of servers. For our example, we are going to use the sample Superstore dataset that comes with Tableau to simplify matters. So let's click that to load the sample Superstore dataset. Okay, we will be transferred to this sheet, and we will come back to it in a moment. But before doing that, let's go to the data source, which is the data set that we just opened. Click this tab. Here you can see the structure of the data that we just opened. We have 3 tables here. The orders table contains most of the data, and these 2 tables are almost useless. So we have our variables here listed. Each column is a variable. In Tableau, they are also called data fields. These are sales from different states on different dates. We have the geography of where the sales originated from, the quantity, the sales in dollars, discounts, profits, manufacturers, among other data. There's also a variable called profit bin here, which is supposed to be a categorical variable, but it's empty. So make sure you never use this. It's, again, another useless piece in this data set. Anyway, this is the data set, and the variables are almost self-explanatory. Next, we're going to take a look at sidebar in Tableau and the sheets. These will be worksheet, dashboard, and story. The sidebar is this area where you can see your data tables and data fields. The tables are displayed here, the 3 tables that we had. We're going to use orders. So let's open that. You can see there's a dividing line here in the middle, and it divides numeric variables in the bottom from categorical variables at the top. Numeric variables in Tableau are called measures, and categorical variables are called dimensions. So these categorical variables can be different types of categories like text, the ABC icon, hierarchies. Our data fields will be used to create our visualizations in sheets. Each viz element in Tableau is created in a sheet. Sheets or worksheets are separated here on the Sheets tab. A sheet, short for a worksheet, is a place where you put your visualizations. Each sheet will contain usually one visualization. The sheet is also called a view or a viz. So we start with sheets, then put them together in a dashboard. And if we want to present some of that in a particular order, we can create a story made up of different slides. These are the three types of sheets: worksheets or sheets, dashboards, and stories. I'll delete these and we'll come back to those later. Next, we have shelves, columns, rows, filters, and pages. Columns and rows are where you put your data fields, and they determine what will be displayed in the view here. Filters allow you to throw away some of the data from a certain visualization and exclude them. Pages allow you to have different views based on a certain data field. And you'll see examples of each of these in the first visualization. The next element is the marks card, but the cards that you see here will determine how your visualization looks. It's the color of its elements, the size, the text that will be displayed on it, the tooltips that come on when you hover your mouse over something, and details or additional information that need to be in the visualization. Okay, for our first element, we're going to create a map of sales by states. So first, we're going to place US states on a map and then display sales by state on that map. Looking at our data fields, we can see that we have data on US states, which states the data are coming from. And the way things work in Tableau is you click on the name of the data field you'd like to use and you drag it over to the right places. Now, you can always drag the variables onto the view or the sheet itself, but you can also drag them into these shelves and onto these cards. So I will drag the state variable, click and drag onto this sheet. You'll see I'll have a map and some additional things happen, like the longitude and latitude are added here to the columns and rows. They have been present in the data set, as you can see here. It's okay. You can also see that the state has been added to the detail. This icon here shows that the state has been added to the detail card. So basically, if I want to redo this step, what I just did is equivalent to dragging this state onto the detail card. There are multiple ways of doing the same thing. Anyway, I have my states on a map and I want to show sales on the map. So I have a variable, a measure here called sales. I can drag it. And where should I put it? Well, rows and columns, it's not very clear if they should be under rows and columns. But what about label? Label sounds appropriate. Can it be a label on this map? Let's try that. And notice when I drag that sales data field over, it converts into sum of sales, which is an aggregation, a total, for example, for each state in this case. So let me drag it over and put it on the label element. And you can see that I have elements here. The numbers are showing up in the map. And well, we did what we just wanted to do. Color states by their profit. We're going to use a colorblind friendly palette like orange, blue, diverging. Red, green is not useful for colorblind people because red is an issue there, but orange, blue should work. Color states by their profit. Okay. We have a profits variable here. Notice we're not using the profit bin. That's not a useful variable. It's empty. With the profit variable, we can, if you hold your mouse click on it for a long time, it will start to rename it. But we click and drag and we want to put it on color. Let's color the map. And we did. The map now is colored by profit. You can see also that the variables are added here and they are connected to the different elements of the viz. Right now, profit is tied to color, sales is tied to labels, and that's what we wanted, right? Let me also make sure that the color palette used is the correct one. There are two ways of doing this. You can come to this color and edit color. This is the only element we have here, and we can select orange, blue diverging as our color, or as you notice, there's a legend card here for this map, and there's an edit colors option here too, which takes us to the same place. Two ways of doing the same task. Because I've used this palette before, it's the default palette for now. Display the number of orders for each state in the map tooltip. Okay, the number of orders. If you check out your data, you'll notice that there's the count data field here called orders, and that's the number of orders. And we can aggregate that over states. So I want to include that in my tooltip. What does my tooltip show right now? You can see some of the data that we just used has been added automatically to the tooltip, but we want to add the orders to the tooltip as well. Tooltip is a card here, and we can click the variable, drag it over onto the tooltip, and we should get the count of orders. I did get it. If you didn't get it, sometimes Tableau acts weirdly. I've experienced that myself. If you don't get it here after doing this, even though when you see the count of orders added here with that tooltip icon, you can go to the tooltip, click it, and you can see that you can edit how things are displayed and what things are displayed. You can write your text, you can insert the variables that you want to put there. So this is another way of doing it. If drag and drop doesn't work, use that option. Change the order of items in the tooltip to state, sales, profit, count of orders. So we want to change the order of items in the tooltip. Maybe this is not the best presentation that we have right now. You can click the tooltip. If we don't need country, country is the same. So you can delete this first line. We start with state. We want to go next by sales. So I'll cut and paste it in the right place. And then I'm going to bring profit to the next row. Delete anything that comes afterwards. And I don't mind deleting this space before the count of orders. This is how it's displayed right now. And if you want to keep that, well, you can keep this space. This is actually a tab. You can keep that tab. But if you delete that tab, it's going to look a little bit different. So whatever you're comfortable with, you can keep the tab or delete it. And make sure you delete anything that comes after, so you don't have any extras. You can always select these and format them as well. Change the color, make them bold, do whatever you feel like. Learn to change the colors, use the map. Okay, we already did this step. Learn to format the text on the map. So the text that's on the map here, this is the label, right? This label, and the label, if you check out the icons, this is the data in the label. If we click this chevron here, you can see that there's a format button. And here we have some options. Let's try that. We can make it bold, and you see things are changing, so we are in the right place. You can make the font larger if you want, or change the color. But for now, that's all I wanted to do. Learn to delete or bring back the legend card. So in some cases, the legend is unnecessary because it's obvious what's happening. In this case, it's not. We don't know that the colors represent profits. But if you want to get rid of the legend because it will appear in your dashboard as well, you can always go ahead and hide it. It's not deleting, it's hiding it. To bring it back, you can go to worksheet. You can go to show cards and reset cards, and it will come back. This should be hide. Use the pages shelf to create views based on states, just to see what the pages shelf does. Okay, you've seen some of these marks, how they operate. We haven't used columns and rows a lot, but we'll get to that. But this pages shelf, it's less often used, but it's interesting. And well, we'll go through an example of seeing how it works. So I'm going to drag the state variable onto the pages shelf. And notice something happened here. First of all, I got a control here. And one of the states is selected, starting with A. That's the first state alphabetically. And if I click this arrow here, you can see I'm flipping through the states and checking them out. So that's what the pages does. It allows you to create views based on a variable and its different levels. Here, the variable is a state. Interestingly, it can also animate it for you. So if I click this play button here, it will animate, and I can change the speed as well, make it faster and fastest. I can always animate backwards or forward. So maybe this can be used for interesting animations. Maybe not in this case, but in general. So we use the pages shelf to see what it does. We did the flipping of pages through and removing the state field. Okay, yeah, we're not going to use this pages component here, so I'm going to remove it. Removing variables from any area is simple by just dragging it, clicking and dragging it over to this empty area. You're going to remove it. And notice that the control is also removed. Use your mouse as a scroll to zoom in on texts. Hold down the shift key and click drag texts to center it in the view. So this part is about viewing the map or some of these other visual elements a little bit differently. If you scroll, you can see you can zoom in and out. If you hold down the shift button on your keyboard, you can see my mouse cursor changed, and it allows me to click and drag and put something front and center, like that I just did here. And in the process, I'm fixing the view, and you notice automatically a pin is applied to this view. So this view will always look like this unless I delete this pin. Click the pin icon in the top left corner of the map to remove it. Okay, let's do that. That's easy, right? Okay, back to normal. Add state as a filter and show the filter control. So here we're going to use the filters shelf. The filters shelf allows you to exclude some of the data from your view. The data will not be used in the calculations. It will be totally excluded. So again, we want to filter by state. If I click and drag state to the filters shelf and let it go, you'll see a dialog comes up and I can select what I'm filtering on. I can select all of them. Right now, I want all of them to be selected. So I'll choose that, and notice nothing happened, but we have a control in place. We have a filter in place. It's not just showing. So if I click this chevron and click show filter, you'll notice that a filter will appear here, and now it can control my view completely. If I want to see certain states, I have the ability to do that. And I can click all to view everything on the map. This completes our first visualization. Now, for the second visualization, we're going to create a bar plot of sales by category and manufacturer. First, we're going to create a new sheet and call it sales by manufacturers. Let me be lazy and copy this name. This is where you create your sheets and dashboards. This sheet icon is the first icon, the simplest one. You can see that it shows new worksheet. Click it, a new sheet appears. You can type in the new name. I have it and I can paste it. And the name also appears here. So we have our new sheet. Drag and drop the data fields onto the columns and rows shelves to create the bar plot. Okay, usually this is what we do for creating these views and visualizations. We drag the variables we need onto this column and row shelf here. And first we need sales. In this case, sales is the measure we're going to drag, click and drag and put it here. Columns and rows basically refer to the columns and rows in the visualization. And we want to show sales by category. We have a product variable here that is a hierarchy of categories. We have the category and we can also add manufacturer. This is one way of achieving this. Another way, if I may go back, you can do Command Z or Control Z or drag these into the empty space and go back. I can just add category and open the category and show what's inside. The different levels will appear here. And I needed category and manufacturer, so I can delete subcategory by dragging it out, or I can click this chevron here and click remove. Both methods lead to the same place. Color the bars by profit. Okay, we can do that. The color card comes to mind. The variable profit was mentioned. So let's marry these two. Drag the variable onto the color card. See what happens. Okay, we have a color coding here. We can always change what color palette we're using. You can use red, green, diverging, but this palette is not colorblind friendly. So I asked you to create this bar plot using the orange, blue, diverging palette. All right. Add the sales value to each bar. Okay, we can do that. So sales value, sales is the data to be used. What should we do with it? The columns and rows are determined by these variables, but we want the bars to have an additional information, maybe a label. Let's try that. So we can drag this over to label and let it go. Okay, yes. Sales values are now added to each bar. Remember to always do a little bit of experimentation. Sometimes you may not get things right the first time you try. So in the next step, we're going to do sort the categories and the manufacturers by sales in descending order. Right now, this visualization seems messy. If we sort the data here, it probably is going to look better, show us some patterns. So I'm going to first sort by category, and if I click this chevron here, click sort, I can sort by category. This screen comes up, sort by field. I want to sort by sales, which is the data field. In descending order, the field name would be sales. We're sorting by sales. And it has to be aggregated, right? It has to be, for each category, it has to be added up, for example, or another type of aggregation. We're using the sum because we want the total. So we're sorting by the total sales. Now, technology has the highest sales, furniture the second, and office supplies the third. We also want to sort by manufacturer. So following the similar steps, sort by field, descending, sales, sum. This is everything you've done before, but you notice this doesn't show a sorted bar chart. What's this guy and this guy doing here? Well, this is because of the logic of sorting in Tableau. We rightfully expect Tableau to first sort by technology, category, and then sort by manufacturer, the way we just did. That's not what Tableau does. It has a slightly different logic. So in order to fix this, we need to remind ourselves that this is a nested type of sorting. There is an option for nested sorting. And if we select that, the problem will be solved. Great. Filter the plot to only show sales higher than $5,000. Okay. Now we can use the filter shelf again. You can see there are some brands and manufacturers that have little amount of sales. So this makes our plot a little bit too informative. So filter would be based on the total sales. So let's drag the sales data field onto the filters shelf. And here, obviously, we have to do some sort of aggregation. Again, sum is the aggregation that makes sense because we want the sum of sales for each manufacturer to be above $5,000. Then click next. There's multiple ways of showing how things should be filtered. This measure is a numeric variable, obviously, and these are the options that will be given for a measure. In our case, we want to have at least $5,000 in sales. So the higher ceiling doesn't matter for us. The lower end matters. 5,000 is the limit. And now we got rid of all those small manufacturers and brands. And in the last step, we're going to do a little bit of formatting, use bold font, use bold font. Use bold font for text on the horizontal axis, numbers on the plot, and the names of the manufacturers. So turn everything bold. That's the plan. So let's start with the axis. Let's click it, see what happens. Okay, it's selected. You can right click. With formatting, so you have to explore a little bit. Most things, if you can figure where they are, you right click, you'll find the format option. So this is the axis, we want to fix it. You can right click, format, and the formatting pane appears here. Notice that the data pane has gone away, that sidebar. And we have also two options here. This is the axis, so we are going to work on the font for the axis, and we want to make it bold. When you click it, make sure you notice that something is changing. If it's not, you are in the wrong menu. All right, in this case, I know this by experience. So this was turned bold. Here for the column headers here, if you right click, there's also a format button. If you play around with that, you'll see that it does something different. It just turns the headers to whatever you choose. Let's keep that. We also want to make these brand names bold. So I click the first element here and hold down my shift button on the keyboard and then click the last to select all of these and right click, and there it is, the format option. So let's format and turn these bold. Yeah, there you turn bold. Great. The last element we want to convert to bold font are these numbers for sales. How do we select those? There's a format option here, but let's see. Yeah, it worked. Another way of doing that, if I go back one step, you can do Control-Z or Command-Z on your computer. I went back one step. Another way of doing this is to remember that these are labels, and maybe there's a format option here as well, and you go to the same place, the same results. So multiple ways of doing the same thing. Okay, we have our second worksheet here. For the third element, we need to create a worksheet, but we are going to duplicate the previous worksheet to save ourselves some time. This is the worksheet we're trying to duplicate. I'm going to come to this tab here, right click and click duplicate. You'll notice that I have a new sheet now, exactly the same thing, has a number 2 at the end, meaning this is the second copy. We want to rename it to profits by subcategory. Double click the name, profits by subcategory. The name has also changed here. So in the next step, we're going to modify that sheet. So this is going to be profit by subcategory. You have to drag and drop the data fields that we need into the right places and drag unwanted data fields out. Profits by subcategories. Right now we have sales. So you need to bring in profits. And notice here, we're not seeing our data. We are in the format pane. We can close it by clicking this cross here. And we want to bring profits over. We can bring profits over here. Now I have the sum of profits. Notice now I have both of them, but I don't need the sales, so I'll get rid of it. I have profits by category and manufacturer, but I wanted profits by subcategory. So I can get rid of manufacturer, and I can open category up and get rid of category as well. Profits by subcategory. Is it showing everything that I wanted to show? Yeah, profits by subcategory. There's a filter here. We have to think about that. Drag the data field currently in the filters shelf away to remove it. This comes from the previous viz, and we don't need to filter anything here. So let's drag it out. And eventually we are going to format similar to what we did earlier. I want to turn these numbers bold. And these numbers are already bold. I can also convert these to bold fonts. Okay, there we go. We have our third visualization. Create and format a dashboard using these 3 sheets. Set the dashboard size to automatic. Drag and drop the 3 sheets onto the dashboard while holding down the Shift key to use the floating mode. To create a new dashboard, we're going to click this window-like icon here, which says New Dashboard, when you hover your mouse over it. First, we're going to set our size to automatic. I want to use the entire space that I have here. Generally, you have to think about what type of environment will use this dashboard and pick an appropriate size. So we have the 3 elements we created before here, and we can drag them, click and drag them over to this area. But if we just click and drag, they're going to fit into the entire space. That's the tiled option right here that is showing. We want to use the floating. You have to either click that floating option and drag things over, or hold down the Shift key, which is common. You hold down the Shift key and now you can use the floating mode. So I brought in my first element, click, drag, and hold down the Shift key to put it onto this dashboard. Click and drag the last item and hold down the Shift key. We have all 3 elements here. Delete the legend cards if necessary. This legend is not probably useful. I'm just going to delete it for simplicity. It could be useful, but I'm trying to show you how things are done. You can make your own decisions. So sometimes you have legends that shouldn't be there because things are obvious. Drag a horizontal container to the dashboard while holding down the shift key. Holding down the shift key, which we're going to do, is to use the floating option. So here in the object section, there are some elements you can add to your dashboard, like text, image, and these containers, horizontal and vertical containers. And these are all helpful in creating a visually appealing layout. These containers allow you to put things together. So I'm going to hold down the shift key and bring in a container. It's a horizontal container. And I'm going to put these two elements. Notice that they have a handle. Put your mouse over that handle, hold down the shift key again. It disappears, but don't worry, it's there. I clicked it, I dragged it, I'm holding down the shift key, and I let it go here. There it is. Now the next element, click to activate it, click the handle, hold down the shift key, and bring it over into this container, and notice that I'm getting that gray bar on the four sides. I can decide where to put it. I'm going to put it here on the right-hand side. Now, this container is filled with the two elements I just put in it. In the next step, I'm going to drag a vertical container. So my plan is to have a vertical container, and the top of that container would be this element. And at the bottom, I would have these two, which are in their own container. So let's bring in a vertical container, click drag, hold down the shift key. And then I'm going to select this object. So this is what I'm doing. Click the handle, hold down the shift key, and bring it over here. For the next step, I want to put everything together in this fashion. I want to bring in another horizontal container. Let's go back to the instructions. This is what we've done so far. Okay, the next step, I don't have it here. I'll add it. And I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do with that. So I'm going to add another horizontal container here. And later, when I put this one and this container together, I'm going to put that new entity in this horizontal container and put this one side by side. Now that we have some of our elements in the containers, you'll notice that we can't select those containers, but this one we can. How can we work with containers? Well, to do that, we go to the Layout tab. And here you can see that we can select the different containers we have. And whenever we do that, you'll notice that the whole container is being selected. So as our first step here, we want to put this whole horizontal container into this other vertical container. So I'm going to select the horizontal container, this element, click here, click on the handle, hold down the shift, drag over to this container. This is the vertical container, and I'm going to put it at the bottom of the vertical container. All right, so far so good. Now notice I have a new vertical container that contains all these three elements. I can select that vertical container. Make sure you're not changing the name here. Select the container, click on the handle, hold down the shift button, drag it over into the horizontal container. And as our last step, we're going to click this element. This can be selected easily. It's not a container. Click the handle, hold down the shift button and bring it here and put it on the right-hand side of this container. And you can see you can still go inside those containers, but follow the logic I just did and make sure that all the side here turns gray, meaning that you're putting the last element here and covering the entire space. So we have our big container now. Everything is in one big container. And this is good because now you can select that container. You can put it wherever you want, however you want. And you can drag and resize it and it will look nice. Not exactly, but it needs a little bit more work. Make visual adjustments and alignments. And there's one last step that we're going to get. So let's do the visual adjustments and alignments. So first of all, you can drag this line over, make the map a little bit bigger. We missed a step back. Didn't we sort this? We wanted to sort this as well. We want to sort this product. So you can always go back and the changes you make will take effect in your dashboard. So in the profits by subcategory, I wanted to sort this bar chart based on sales, or in this case, sorry, by profits in descending order. And I want to bring profits here. The sum of profits. So this looks much better. It's easier to digest. So sorting this subcategory field by profit, sum of profits in descending order. Going back to the dashboard, you can see the changes reflected. And one of the things that I did differently from what I had shown you at the beginning is that these two guys are misplaced. So let me see if I can switch their places. Yes. All right, good. Okay, so we can change the focus of the map by zooming in, and we can realign it by holding down the shift key and moving things around. Notice we'll have a pin here. This is not taking the entire space. You can select this element. You can try to fit it. Fit height. It's doing the job for us. Here, if you are getting a scroll bar, that's okay. If you want, you can fit it to contain everything in one image. It's going to be harder to read a little bit, so maybe drag this up. We have our control here as well. If I change the elements in this control, you'll notice that only the map is changing. So one of the big things about interactivity in Tableau is that you can make everything dependent on one control or more controls. So I want everything to change when I change my control. So just to stay true to what I showed you at the beginning, I can try to fit this by width only. We can always make small adjustments to show everything. The header here is not showing properly. Okay, so how do we make the entire dashboard dependent on this control? Well, that's easy. Whenever you have a control, come here, click this chevron, apply to worksheets, all using related data source. And now when I change something here in this control, everything changes. This is good for exploring the data and gaining insights. What's happening in Texas? Texas is not selling well. What problems are we having in Texas? Or in California, things are going well. What's happening in California? We can explore those states separately. And this is why we have the controls here. You can add additional options, like you can customize it to have an apply button. So nothing changes until you hit the apply button. And obviously there's a lot of other customizations you can do. But this is a dashboard we started out to create, and there we are. We have our dashboard. So as our last work in this session, we're going to create a story. As I said earlier, sheets in dashboard are three types: worksheets. These are the worksheets that we have. Dashboards, we created one. And there's also story. Story is this last icon, which looks like an open book. Let's click it to create a new story. And stories are like PowerPoint presentations, a sequence of slides you put together, a sequence of visualizations or parts of visualizations you put together for presentation purposes. So again, you can see it's a dashboard like situation here. You have all the elements you need, but you also have the dashboard. And you can put them here, put a caption, and create your own story. So here I'm going to start with the entire country. So I'm holding down the shift key to center this. So this is the entire country. I'm going to call it sales in the US, for example. In the next slide, I want to focus on, again, sales, but in California, and I can call it California. But this is not California. I can hold down the shift key to move things around, focus on California, zoom in, shift key down to focus on California, bring it front and center. Now I have California. I can talk about California a little bit, and then I can talk about Texas, for example. Hold down the shift key to move the map around. I can also maybe talk about New York. And compare these states in terms of sales. Scroll to zoom in. Hold down the shift button to, this is Texas. Oops. You see, you can select certain number of states as well. Hold down the shift key and move the map around, zoom in, scroll. Okay, let's also add the sales by manufacturer here. We can also focus on some of these manufacturers in one last slide here. So I'm going to drag this over to my last slide here, select brands. And I'm going to hold down the control key and start selecting some of these brands. And notice an option is given to me to either keep only or exclude. I'm going to keep only these ones. And you notice I have a slightly different visualization here. So that concludes this session. You were able to create a dashboard, story, multiple sheets. You learned a lot of details in how to handle the different aspects of the visualization. And there's obviously a lot more that can be done in Tableau, but you're at a great starting point to learn more on your own, even if you wanted to. Tableau itself provides a lot of instructional videos and pages, and there are a lot of resources on the internet, on YouTube. So keep exploring, keep learning, have fun.